Great. Well, thank you for having me. I hope you're all able to see the slide now. By way of a brief introduction, I'm Lynette Attai. I am Project Director for CoSN's Student Data Privacy Initiative and Trusted Learning Environment Program. Is everyone familiar with CoSN? I'm guessing so, but if anyone needs me to share a little bit more about CoSN, please do just give a shout and I will do so. Outside of CoSN, I'm a data privacy consultant. I've been working in data privacy for almost 25 years now. I work primarily across the youth and education sector, and I will not bore you with any more details, but there's some about me in the slides. What I'd really like to talk to you about today is student data privacy and the work that we have at CoSN and the opportunities we have at CoSN to sort of support your efforts in this arena. So I want to talk just briefly about why protecting student privacy matters, which I think is something uncontroversial that we can all agree about. Then talk you through the CoSN Trusted Learning Environment, a little bit about the benefits and why go through this work and how we can work together to improve privacy for all the students in the state. So, and I'm sorry, this is Georgia. It's not supposed to say Georgia. I was thinking about the South last night for some reason, and Georgia was on my mind. No reference to the song intended. So, a little bit about privacy and what student data privacy is about. We think about student data privacy through the lens of different laws. FERPA, of course, being the granddaddy of student data privacy laws, been around since the 70s. The Protection of People Rights Amendment, which is one of the privacy laws that doesn't get talked about very often, but is critically important, especially these days when we're maybe speaking to our students about politics, religion, any of the sort of sensitive topics. Then, of course, we have privacy provisions in the Individuals with Disabilities Act. And of course, you have South Carolina Code, which sort of articulates requirements to comply with these federal laws and then some. But the laws really aren't how I think about privacy. Having been a practitioner for many, many years, I really think about privacy through the lens of the individual and privacy being an individual right. And when it comes to our students, we're talking about, or for any of us really, we're talking about the right to be left alone. We're talking about being able to decide for ourselves what information we share about ourselves with others. And for our students, we're in a unique position in that we are making decisions about those rights to privacy for them. We're deciding what information we're going to gather about them, who we're going to share it with, how we're going to protect it, where we're going to store it, what we're going to do with it. And so that is in and of itself a pretty awesome responsibility. So when I think about privacy, I tend to think about the laws as certainly critically important, but more than the laws, I think about what's our mission in education to support our students, to build the leaders and grow the leaders of tomorrow, and also about this responsibility that we have to act in their best interests, including with respect to their privacy rights. And so we need to make sure that our decisions about their privacy are consistent and aligned with our organizational mission and vision and values, as well as with the legal requirements. So when we think about privacy, instead of thinking first about the laws, I tend to try to think about what are the core privacy concepts? And these are the Fair Information Practice Principles, and whether intentionally or not, they form the underpinnings of just about every privacy law that's been written in the US and around the world. And it breaks down like this. First, we're talking about being transparent, making sure that the individuals whose information is at stake, they know what we're doing. They know what information we're collecting. They know what we're doing with it. They know where we're sharing it. This idea of participation, this speaks to this idea of parent consent, which is so prevalent in education. This idea of being an active participant in deciding, making these decisions about your privacy. Making sure that we're collecting data with a specific purpose in mind with each piece of data that we collect. And these concepts apply to your technology providers as well. So think about what information they're collecting, what are they doing with it. We don't collect data just for the sake of having data. We need to have a particular aim in mind when we collect it. We need to minimize the data we collect, not collect more information than is necessary for the purpose that we are intending to embark on. And we need to use that data only for that purpose. If we want to use it for some other purpose that we haven't been transparent about, we need to go back to the decider with transparency and participation. We need to maintain the security, quality, and integrity of the data, wholeness of the data, the accuracy of the data, and then we need to have auditing and accountability in place around this. Now, I appreciate that I say this is very easy. It seems like, oh, that seems very simple, and I appreciate that it is certainly not simple to accomplish all of this in a way that reaches across your organization and is transparent with your community and gets everyone in the organization moving in the same direction when it comes to student data privacy. But there are, in my experience, two reasons why this gets hard. Well, three really. One is it is hard. This is not easy work. If it's feeling like it's hard for you, you're probably doing it right. This is a lot about excavating gaps, changing behaviors, making organizational changes. It's not just about the technology. It's about behavior change. And that is incredibly difficult in an organization, especially if you are not in the superintendent's chair and able to sort of make those top-down changes across the organization. But also there are two other pieces to it. One is the knowledge gap. There's certainly complexity to these laws that we need to comply with. There are all sorts of technology vendors that we want to engage with for the benefit of our students, but diligence and ensuring that our vendors are doing the right thing, that we are in the right path with them, we're making the right choices about our vendors is not an easy thing to do. We, of course, have parents who have questions and concerns about what information we're collecting about their kids, what we're doing with it, why we're doing that, who we're sharing it with, and how we are making sure that we're protecting not just students physically, but also their information. And then, of course, we have policies. We have state policies, we have district level policies, and we need to translate those into behaviors that people need to engage in order to align with those policies. And all this is very complicated. We need to understand how to do it. And then, of course, we have action gaps. Right? And these are questions like, well, where do I even start doing this work? How do I even get going? It's an immense task building a privacy program, and you're building a whole new function, a whole new muscle, or you're trying to improve a program that's in place. So where do I even start? Do I have my leadership support? Because you can't really come at this as technology leaders. We can't come at this sideways. We need to have top-down support to do this work. Most importantly, because it is about behavior change in many respects. And that takes sort of some leadership impetus to get everyone moving in the same direction. It requires building a privacy program, which is a sort of lifelong commitment. Building a security program, another lifelong commitment. These are not functions that are ever done. These are not things that are ever perfect. We're just constantly reviewing our work, improving, adding new safeguards, new tools into the equation, new policies, new behaviors, rinsing and repeating, assessing where we are, rinsing, repeating. We've got to train on this, and sometimes finding the right training, getting time to do the right training with your teams, making sure that you have teachers' time and attention in order to train them on privacy is in and of itself an incredible challenge. And then, of course, communications. How are we talking to our community about privacy and how we're protecting the privacy? How are we speaking internally to our internal communities around this? There's a tremendous amount of work to do, but this is really about, and I don't want to hit this too hard, but it's really important. This is really about behavior change. And behavior change can substantively reduce our risk. We know this from looking at causes of security incidents, causes of ransomware attacks. Really, how does it come in the door? Oftentimes through social engineering, through phishing. How do breaches happen? Oftentimes through errors, mistakes, and mistakes will happen, but we can reduce the field of possibility of mistakes with a really strong privacy program, and we can reduce the opportunities for the bad actors to be accessing our student data with not just a strong security program, but a really strong privacy program. So we look at this from the perspective of everyone is probably in a different place with their privacy program. You'll have some districts that are very mature, have been working on privacy for a very long time. Others, maybe they're just getting started. And where you are is fine. Start where you are and put the ingredients together, and I'll share a little bit about what those are, and make a plan. Bite off what you can chew, triage. You cannot fix everything at once. So start small. Move slowly and methodically. Make sure you look back every once in a while and see how far you've come and the progress you've made, and then just stay in action around this. This is not something you're going to fix in a day or a week or a month, sometimes even a year or a few years. You're just getting in action and you're continuously improving your practices. So how do we help you with this work? CoSN has a trusted learning environment program, and if you're not familiar with this, this is a privacy framework that was created by school district leaders with CoSN in partnership with Superintendents Association, with the Business Officials Association, and ASCD, along with district leaders from across the country. And it is not legal requirements, but in addition to legal requirements, what does it take to have an organization-wide holistic student data privacy program? So this is a student data privacy framework that was created by education leaders for use in education. So it's very specific to your needs, very specific to the work that you do. And it's broken up into 5 practice areas, which we'll talk about. Some practice areas, some requirements of leadership, some requirements with respect to business practices, bringing technology and vendor services into your organization. Certainly data security practices, very important part in supporting privacy. Professional development practices, that training I mentioned. And then classroom practices. How are your teachers modeling privacy behaviors in the classroom? How are they able to speak to the privacy program that you have in place, to the teachers, to their parents? Because we know, of course, that teachers are often the face of a privacy program. The program is supported by, as I mentioned, the lead partners who help in development, but also a variety of additional partners that work in education and across education in various capacities. So it's got really broad acknowledgement and support and validation. So what does it look like? Within these 5 buckets that I mentioned, there are a total of 25 specific requirements to protect student data. These include things such as your leadership has provided policies and procedures to protect student data privacy. Your leadership is regularly engaged in conversations about protecting student data privacy. You are vetting technologies that come into your district that will be accessing student data. You have data protection agreements in place with those vendors. You are encrypting data in transit at rest. You have rules around storage of data in portable media. You have an incident response plan that includes communications. You have a disaster recovery plan. And then professional development, you're offering training to all employees around student data privacy. You're providing training opportunities, education opportunities for parents around privacy. You're educating your teachers on the vetting process they are required to follow for bringing classroom technologies in. And your teachers can speak to privacy practices, and they're modeling good privacy practices for students, in addition to you having a good internet safety education program in place, an internet literacy program in place. And what I'm showing on this slide are really just some of the resources that we have in place that kind of break down these practices and help you work through the different requirements. So what I've mentioned are just some of those 25 requirements, but hopefully to give you an idea of what we're talking about. We're assuming that you're compliant with the laws, and we're asking you in some ways to show us how and how the organization as a whole operates around privacy. This is sort of looking beyond just legal compliance and looking at what it really takes to make this, to implement this and operationalize this across the organization. And really what the Trusted Learning Environment Program does is help alleviate some of the tension that we see between the needs for 21st century learning environments and concerns and growing awareness of the importance of data privacy and data security. So how it works is really quite simple. There's an application for Trusted Learning Environment Seal, and it's available at cosn.org/trusted. You can download the application or take a look at it. It's freely available. And you'll see all 25 requirements. And what you'll be asked to do would be to gather evidence demonstrating how you are meeting each requirement. And within each requirement, there's actually an example provided of evidence, what it is we're looking for, a particular policy, a particular procedure, meeting minutes that demonstrate that people are talking about a particular topic. You upload the material into the application. You don't have to fill it all out at once. You can save your progress, come back to it, and then you submit. And I should mention this time that you don't have to do the whole application at once. You can actually apply for one of the practice areas at a time and receive a mini seal acknowledgement of your work in a particular practice area. It's a way to kind of see, am I on the right track before writing out the whole application? Now, what are the benefits of this program and why do we need to do it? Well, I don't need to tell you that how important student data privacy is and how critically important it's become to parent communities and the level at which privacy awareness has been raised in this country among parents and others. When you apply for the Trusted Learning Environment seal, whether you get the seal or not, whether your application earns the seal or not, and the application is scored, it's basically a maturity model. It's scored on a scale of 1 to 4, and 1 means, well, that's a good idea. I should think about doing that. And 4 means we're an example for the nation. We're in such a good spot. We're kind of leaders in this particular item. So you're not needing to get a 4 to succeed in earning the seal, but a 3 is a really solid score and shows we have solid, repeatable policies and procedures in place, and privacy is reaching holistically across the organization. Everyone is invested in privacy. Now, whether you earn the seal or not, what you receive from us after we've reviewed your application will be feedback showing you how you scored on each of the 25 requirements, explaining to you why you scored that way, and providing you with some free resources and guidance to how to improve your scores. You will also receive a benchmarking report, and here's an excerpt from a benchmarking report. It's going to show you just visually how did you score compared to the aggregate scores of all TLE seal recipients. You'll see here that this particular district is actually right there on data security and classroom practices, and they're not far off on the other practices, but maybe leadership and business needs a little bit of attention. Maybe they could improve on professional development, but really they're solid in these other 2 practice areas. And so what it's showing you is where should we focus our next work in privacy. And you get this benchmarking report not just for the 5 practices, but for each of the 25 requirements. In going through this work, the application is transparent and earning the seal is celebrated. So it builds trust in your community because they're able to see that you're making solid efforts around privacy. It's not a guarantee that bad things won't happen, but it is a measure of maturity around privacy. And I want to assure you that applications are completely confidential. We never reveal information in an application. We never talk about or mention what districts have applied. We never even release actually the number of districts that have applied. We only talk about those who have earned the seal. So we're not putting a target on anyone's back. We don't want anyone to feel like, well, if I apply and don't get it, people will know. No one will know except us, and we're here to help you improve. I mentioned before, you can apply for 1 seal at a time, 1 practice area at a time for all 5 practice areas. This is available to you, and you'll get the same feedback and benchmarking reports for a mini seal as you do if you apply for the whole seal. So you're getting quicker results, quicker acknowledgement, quicker motivation to keep going, and certainly sooner understanding that you are on the right track, that you are right with other districts when it comes to the maturity level of your practices. We also have opportunities at the state level to help them help you, where we would essentially survey all the districts in the state, and then we, and by we I mean CoSN, we'll aggregate and de-identify the survey result, and we'll be able to come back to the state and say, hey, look, here's where your districts are doing really, really well, and here's where we see common areas of struggle, common areas of challenge. We will then customize resources for you, for the state, for your state leaders to distribute to help you in those areas of need. And we can also help you come together and crowdsource your work, crowdsource your expertise, build knowledge at scale across your districts to help you measure and motivate to keep going around privacy, as well as giving you some tangible pieces, identifying the leaders in the state around certain practices, and making sure we're all elevating our practices at scale as a group. So I'm going to stop talking there and to open the conversation up for questions, notes, comments, thoughts. Anyone have questions they'd like to start with?
You're muted, Val.
Kept on clicking. Good afternoon, everyone. Lynette, I just wanted to add a comment to our district folks that are out there and maybe even some of our SD staff. The whole purpose of this overview webinar is to gauge your interest in potentially us taking advantage of the LEA component of this opportunity. Of course, as I always say with my district folks, they don't like us buying stuff for you that you didn't ask for. But this is just to gauge your level of interest and that information to be taken to our senior staff to get their opinion of this or approval and whatnot. So we just wanted to just provide this opportunity to everyone. Do please ask questions. We won't make any hasty decisions, but we also want to mention that Lynette is also going to be invited to come to EdTech and do some sessions for us too. So we'll be able to extend upon the training and the professional development in our districts as well. And I just wanted to personally tell Lynette, thank you very much. And also Blondell for arranging this webinar this evening. And do please ask questions.
Yeah, thank you for that, and I'm happy to be here and looking forward to supporting districts in person, remotely, and so curious to hear from folks. Is the idea of having a sort of a guidepost, a framework around privacy helpful to you? Ben has got a hand up.
Lynette, I appreciate your time today. Valerie and Blondell, thank you so much. Question I have, I've seen this framework before, and I know you all were trying to formulate it over the last couple of years, especially since COVID occurred. I'm sure you've heard of One EdTech, IMS Global.
Yes.
So I see that your framework has reached out a bit. We already have a vetting program, and this might be a little bit too beyond the scope of what you want to talk about. But how does your program or your framework, because I see you have a program as well, how does that align with One EdTech? Because I remember seeing you all at their Learning Impact Conference last year. So is there any work with you all together?
Yeah, so it's a great question, and not officially, but we do recognize there are other programs and frameworks in the market. And typically what we see is, so for example, with One EdTech, there's a vetting practice that goes on. That actually helps support one of the 25 requirements of the Trusted Learning Environment Initiative. We see the Student Privacy Consortium has a model contract. Some districts use, some don't use, a model data protection agreement. That also supports one practice of the Trusted Learning Environment Program. So this really reaches beyond just, but beyond vendor management. And it really speaks to both vendor management and internal management, internal organizational management of data. So those programs support some of the practices. So it's not duplicative, it's sort of additive, and the TLE reaches beyond those programs.
And that was my question. It's not a duplication, it's just an add-on. And I do like the fact that you all are branching out into like business continuity, disaster recovery, which is the holistic picture of infrastructure and but thank you for that. I appreciate you.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It's a good question. And it does work basically synergistically with a lot of programs that are out there. But sort of asks you to think about, okay, so you've got your vendor stuff under control. Right. What about the rest of it? Are your teachers trained, or is your leadership engaged? Right? Do you have policies for this? And so it ultimately what you're doing is you're saying, okay, we did this, now what's next? Let's move on to this. But if you have those business practices in place, it might mean that you qualify for the business practice mini seal. And so you can sort of apply for that, think about, and sort of get that feedback and that acknowledgement to say, okay, is this enough to meet these requirements? If so, we kind of know what the ballpark is, right? We know what we're aiming for.
Yeah, and I don't want to dominate the time. Have you stopped recording yet, Ms. Brown? I don't want to, but I
No, we have not. But if you have questions, please ask.
well, I wanted to say this, for those of you who are already using the trusted apps, I think this is the extension of that, to have a framework, because we have that in place, Lynette, but we've had problems with trying to get the training in place. People understanding the why, and if we don't get that, we end right back up where we started, and it becomes this constant fight on, why we're doing that. So this was good today. Okay, Jenny, you there? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, you're good. I'm tagging on to what you're saying, because as I was looking at this, and Lynette, I appreciate this, because I've looked at CETL, hadn't looked at this, and I'm very interested. And I think, Ben, my mind is where you are. The other part that I feel like in an education environment, seals and awards, if that's the way you want to look at it, or whatever you would call I guess the words is going through these assessments, they carry a lot of weight. And I know there's areas that I struggle sometimes within my district, because people say, well, technology just needs to take care of that. That's your job. And we know it takes all of us. And so trying to get some of that buy-in, but even I'm not sure I can think of the word, but the validation, maybe, that this isn't just technology saying you should do this. Like, there's reasons, the why behind it, and the value. And people will say, yeah, oh yes, of course our student data is important, but it stops there. And we've done a lot of things, I think, to try to push us forward as far as my district in this area. I like how this kind of brings it together. So it can maybe show us what we're doing well and what we can improve on. And Lynette, I appreciate, and I'll be honest, I've not dug into this, but I appreciate you saying, like, there's tools in there we can use. So those areas we need to shore up, because that's what it's about, is that continuous improvement. So
that's right. It's definitely
like
about continuous improvement, and it's about, it's a forcing function in some ways to break down silos within an organization, which is really helpful. And also, having worked with a number of districts, a number of TLE Seal recipients, many of them have been very generous with us with their policies and their training. And so we can provide, for example, when we get an application in and someone's weak in one area, we can say, oh, this other district we've worked with, they've allowed us to share it. Here's an example of their policy. Here are links to all their training that's publicly available. Go, beg, borrow, and steal from this. And so it helps you make those incremental improvements without, you're not going it alone. Connor, I think you had a hand up.
Yes. So I've dug into CoSN a good bit before, mainly looking at the CETL certification, but I haven't really branched out from that, especially for the TLE certification. As someone who is I'm sort of a pseudo position between technology and instruction, it's very nice to see something that does break into these other areas. As in our district, one of the biggest things I face is a bunch of soft policies where we're like, oh, well, student data is important, but if something were to actually happen, what are we going to do? We don't have those hard lines where we can draw it down and say, hey, this is what we're going to do. And when you have something like this, where it's not only a framework that's very easy to follow and clearly outlines everything, but has that certification along with it, and that sort of brings that validation that allows me to go to my superintendent and go to the people above me who are before like, well, it's just technology. I'll just handle that as something like, it's very obvious that we do that, and say, hey, look, like right now, it's not obvious that we do that. We don't have it outlined anywhere. Like, we would not qualify for this. So being able to have that and say, hey, look, we don't meet this threshold really gets their buy-in, hopefully.
Yeah, and I think you and Jenny have both raised the question about CETL, and so I want to just speak to the differences between those, because CETL is another CoSN certification program. CETL is really focused on the individual, so it's your certification as a technology leader, whereas Trusted Learning Environment is really focused on the organization. Right? It's not about you per se, although you will likely be leading the charge, but it's about how's the organization functioning around student data privacy. I think I saw another hand up.
Sean.
Yeah, and I'm sorry if you had covered this and it went right over my head. But could you speak to any time constraints or any expectations on how long each step of the process should take? Is there a time limitation, or is it kind of more up to each district to figure that out individually? And is there a window for renewal or maintaining it?
Great questions. There is no time limit. So you can start an application today go back to it in a month, go back to it in 6 months. There's no time limit. We'll see that you started it. We're not going to look at it until you hit the submit button. Once you have, and I should say this, so there are nominal fees to apply, and it's one of the things that we're talking to Valerie and Blondell about, or that there are nominal fees to apply. So for small districts, I want to be very transparent. For small districts that are CoSN members, it's $100. For small districts that are not CoSN members, it's $200. For large districts, those numbers are $200 for CoSN members and $400 for non-members. We're talking to the state. One of the things we're talking about is should we engage in a program where we cover those costs for all of you. The nice thing about it is that once you apply, say you apply and you don't get the seal on the first try, and you get the feedback and get the benchmarking. And by the way, several of our TLE seal recipients, that's been their experience. They didn't get it the first time. They got the benchmarking and they said, okay, here's what I have to do. Let me make my plan and do it. You can go back into your application at any time, improve it, hit submit again. There's no extra charge for that. So it's really just a one-time fee. And then the seal is good for 2 years, after which you must renew with $50 renewal fee, unless the state covers it. And during that renewal, what we want to see is some improvement. We don't expect anyone to improve on all 25 requirements. And if you've done so, like, great, but that's a lot. Usually 4 to 5 pieces, some improvement is typical. We want to see increment. It's a commitment to doing this work and then ongoing improvement. So that's really the only time limit, is that every 2 years we ask for improvement. If you've earned a mini seal, we had one district, I'm actually going to announce this in the next week, so I'm not going to name names, but we had one district 2 weeks ago. They earned a mini seal for one practice area. They came back in right afterwards with a mini seal for another practice area. So next week I'm going to award them 2 mini seals. So their timeline for renewing is 2 years from the date of the last mini seal they earned, right? So if you earn a mini seal today and then 6 months later you get another mini seal, you just bought yourself 6 months on renewal. And that's kind of how it works. We work on a 2-year cycle, and the last thing you earned is when that renewal cycle starts. If anyone has competitive juices, I should mention that North Carolina districts are working on this. We're working together with their State Department of Instruction. I see some like, oh boy, we got to get ourselves going here. So a little friendly rivalry, always a good thing. But we've been working with and trying to support North Carolina districts around their TLE work. We've done a number of workshops, providing resources. We're working with their Department of Instruction to do essentially this, do it at scale. The state is involved and sort of covering costs and things of that sort. But really, it's about getting better at privacy across the state and identifying among you, right, who are the leaders in certain areas, who needs that advice in certain areas, and how do we bring you together so that you're supporting each other while we are kind of feeding you the resources that we identify as being of need.
I just want to say thank you. Again, thank you. Appreciate you.
My pleasure.
Okay. Any other questions?
Yes, I have one for you. What is the turnaround, Ms. Brown? I'm sorry. What is the turnaround on you needing information from us as districts and Val? You and Val.
Okay, good question. I will be sending out a survey, asking additional questions for those who have viewed the webinar as well as those who haven't, to get it to kind of determine the interests of the districts. So if you see another email from me, please, at your convenience, complete that survey so I can gather that data and present it to Val, and we will go from there. You want to add anything to that, Val?
That sounds pretty much as the plan, and we'll get with Lynette to. So I guess the other question to you, Lynette, what is like the turnaround time as far as the onboarding kickoff? If we go the route of the LA, for example.
Yeah, it's very quick. It's very quick. So if you say, oh yeah, we want to do this at the state level, support our LEAs at scale, then we take care of that, and then we'll have a kickoff call, and set up, okay, what do we want the structure to be? Do we have a kickoff call with the districts? What are we going to cover then? And get everyone sort of moving forward. Yeah, it's very quick turnaround.
Sounds
It's
good.
basically whatever you want the turnaround to be, I should say.
I got you. Cool. Well, thanks. Well, districts, if you're interested, and definitely we'll share this video out with the others that registered and so forth. But as soon as we can get the feedback, the best for us, I would say. Would like to
And I
get
will
this
send you
initiated.
I'll send you a copy of the deck so that you have it in case it's helpful.
Awesome. Thank you.
Sure.
Start recording first.